It's a pain in the butt, much like Hollywood. Alright, cool. Yeah, we got it working. Sorry about the delay, guys. We're having a technical issue today. More or less on my end. Waiting on Sideburn and Don to join us here later. I believe Don knows we're live. I'll let him know real quick. But Sideburn says he's got to tend to his critters, so he should be with us shortly. Welcome back to another Plasticast, guys. I know it's kind of a pain in the butt today. But yeah, we are live, and I've got everything working, I think.
Looks like it.
Yay. Today we're going to talk about the elephant in the room, the Transformer movies. This has been a big hot topic more or less ever since Transformers 1 didn't do well in the box office. And if you actually follow the amount of money that the Transformers movies have made throughout the years, the last night was pretty much where things started kind of going downhill. Probably for obvious reasons. Megamus, do you have any thoughts about the last night?
I'd say it was the same as all the Babe Universe ones. It sucked.
I mean, when it comes to characterization of the Transformers itself, yeah, there's a lot of human element. But when you go and look at the way things were approached in that movie, they had like 3 different plot lines going on at the same time and never really any closure. It's like they had 3 different stories that they were just trying to cram into a 2.5-hour movie. And that never works. That just never works. I don't know. I think it was such a hodgepodge, and that's the last one that Michael Bay had actually directed. But he was involved with Rise of the Beasts. I don't know if you guys know that or not. But yes, he was involved with it. He didn't do the actual directing. He more or less was like more cinematography on it than anything, like camera angles, stuff like that. But the Bumblebee movie a lot of people loved because it kind of went back to the roots of what Transformers should be when it comes to movies. You know, I would say. What did you think of Bumblebee?
Same as the rest of them.
You just didn't like him?
I didn't like any of them.
Yeah. I mean, I can understand that. There's some people out there that don't get into the live action stuff.
It wasn't, I mean, growing up with Transformers and seeing them on the live stream, that's what you want. Absolutely. Live action, yeah, absolutely. But what we got was nothing close. Nothing close to what we were thinking. The characterization, the forms, the transformation, the storyline. I can't think of one good storyline in all those movies. Not one.
I mean, I'll be honest with you. When it came to the very first live action in 2007, I thought it was a little overdone with the humans, but to be honest, since it was the first time they ever really attempted anything like that, I think it was fine. I mean, it was something new. And then, the further you get into those movies, it seems like they just kept throwing too many characters in at once, because if you try to compare it to what the television show was when we grew up, and even any of the cartoons going all the way up to the Bayverse stuff, it was all there to sell toys, you know. Um, but when it comes to live action, it's much harder to do because you can't just erase a character or just say, well, that person just went off the background, forget about him, and then all of a sudden we got somebody else, you know, within a
I just
2 hour segment.
I disagree. I
How do you,
disagree.
how would you do that then if you were going to introduce like a total of 10 different characters in
No,
a movie?
my point is that the original cartoon was to sell toys, and these movies were to make money and sell toys.
Well, I mean,
It was still sponsored by Hasbro. They wanted to sell toys, so it's still a kids infomercial at a higher budget. It is what it is. That's what it was, and that is why the story is so secondary. Hasbro didn't care. They didn't care about the story.
well,
They just
apparently,
wanted to sell toys.
well, I mean, if you look at the track record of all the Transformers movies, all the way up to The Last Night, um, hi Cyburn, every one of them made money all the way up to The Last Night.
Sure.
The Last Night broke even. Now, Hasbro, not Hasbro, but Hollywood does not like to break even on anything. And if you look at the Bumblebee movie, broke even. The Rise of the Beast broke even. But Transformers 1 did not. And
And why do you think that is?
that's because adults think it's weird to go watch a cartoon without kids being there. And I'll be honest with you, they do. They find it very awkward. They think it's strange to have a bunch of people walking in to watch a cartoon that are all adults. Unless it's like anime or something. I think that's kind of a different stipulation. But in modern society, a lot of people tend to look at it as, well, if I don't have a kid with me, I can't go watch this movie. And that's how a lot of people approach it. And the reason they didn't make the money is because the butts weren't in the seats. The only ones who were there were the hardcore Transformer fans that actually helped
Which
carry
had-
this, other than some kids. But the kids didn't care.
Yeah, I actually didn't go see it for pretty much that. I would have went and saw it if my family went and saw it. Like if I went with my dad and my mother and my brother. Like we're all adults, but going as a group of adults is one thing. But no one was really interested. So I didn't go see it. And then I still haven't watched it. I own it on Blu-ray now. I still haven't watched it. Like I bought it and I stuck it on a shelf. And shipped it around. So where did we start off this conversation with? Because I obviously missed the
Well,
start.
I
of it.
obviously
We had just started, so basically,
I was putting ducks away.
we're trying to say. Jason's saying that the first movie did the best, which I get that, and he's trying to say, correct me if I'm wrong, is that you said is because that adults brought kids to it, increasing the attendance, and I'm gonna say no.
Okay.
I believe that what it was is that you had the fans wanted a movie for so long that they put their trust in a director, I use that term loosely, to make this movie, and they went and saw it. And so many people went and saw it, and yes, some did bring the next generation kids, this, that, and the other. So I think that because it was the first is why it was so successful. So then you move on to the second and third. What you had is you had the remnants of those people, the kids that were dragged in by their parents, and the parents not so much, trailing off with each movie. And I believe that's why each movie did less than the last, because the founding fan group pulled away from it. So there's less older people seeing it and more newer people seeing it.
Well, yeah.
I thought
More or less the older.
I thought it reached its height of earnings with Dark of the Moon.
It did.
I know there was a
Yeah.
couple, but remember that
See, those first
still
three
have the
start,
old fandom that's working hard to make sure this works, and it moves up and moves up.
and I think those
But then
I
at
think
some
the
point
first
they
three-
went, no.
those first three, especially the latter two, came out kind of in the right atmosphere, because the first one came out before the MCU started. Like because Iron Man came out the year after, but that first Transformers movie came out, and it almost kind of set the tone for what would be that whole era of comic book movies and movies based on cartoons. And I think it was kind of just, it was just, if Michael Bay does anything, he does spectacles. He's pretty good at spectacles. And it kind of set that tone. And I think at the time there was a little bit of, every single Transformers fan that was, like I was graduating high school at the time. We wanted something that was more adult oriented, something that was less kids show, less cartoon. And I do remember when you watch that first movie, and the first thing that happens in it is Blackout attacks a military base and wipes out everybody on it, right? It was like, oh, okay, this is a more mature Transformers. And I think it just kind of hit at the right time period. Pop culture stuff was getting really popular. But and the other two rode that popularity with a degree of success. And then I think after that, because we started seeing the wane in the MCU attendance, and we started seeing the wane, especially in the Transformers movie attendance. And I think some of that was, I don't know if it's fatigue. I think it's wrong to say fatigue. I just think it was more that it started going back down to its general interest levels. I feel like there was a time period where it was super. I'm gonna let my dog out of my room real fast, but I feel like it was just kind of like a perfect timing, a perfect storm kind of thing. And Transformers 1, I think, hit at the complete opposite, where animated movies in general aren't doing well.
No.
And on top of that, you throw on top of that a 5 or 6 movie legacy for Transformers, or 7 movie legacy for Transformers, where the general consistency, or I feel like the general take on the Transformers movies franchise is that it's mostly not good movies with a lot of AI, or with a lot of CGI that is cool looking,
Yeah.
Let my dog out of my room.
I mean, I can see exactly what he's talking about there when it comes to the fatigue setting in with the whole thing. There are a lot of people out there I know that I've talked to, though, that actually they grew up with the Bayverse, and the Bayverse is their first introduction to Transformers in general. And I don't see how Hasbro can continue pulling the Generation 1 train and have it keep going and going and going for another 20 years. It just isn't going to happen. There has to be a change somewhere.
I thought that was the big, okay, bias. I'm gonna bias preface.
Go for it.
That was kind of the biggest complaint I had with Rise of the Beasts, is why did that movie center around Bumblebee and Optimus Prime? It should have centered around the Beast Wars characters. Like, it was time to center it around someone else. And maybe it's centered around Mirage. I felt like it would have been, if the movie was centered around Mirage and RC and the Beasts, and you obviously have to obligatory Optimus Prime and Bumblebee at the beginning of the movie, but I think that would have made it a much more refreshing flick, because Hasbro keeps doing this, and we see it time and time again. They think they can't succeed without Bumblebee and Optimus Prime.
Yeah. It's a very, very, very true statement. Hey, we were joined here by Don.
Hey guys, sorry I'm late. It was manwich night for dinner, so
Hey, you know
I
what?
haven't had those in forever.
yeah.
Well,
So-
real quick, just one thing real quick. Just remember that Hasbro has a formula, okay? And their formula seems to include Bumblebee and Prime. Whether or not it's true or not, that's just in their head. Trying to convince them otherwise is next to impossible.
Right.
So if you want to know why they do those things, that's it. They look at it and they say, "Oh, we sell to kids, and those are the two popular characters. Boom, let's do that."
Well, I'm not sure. I think I've got the gist of what we're talking about here, but the problem is that it's a lot like Marvel. Marvel will never let their young heroes become the next Avengers, the next Fantastic Four, the next whatever, because they would rather constantly reboot their continuity to keep Peter Parker, to keep the Avengers, to keep these core characters, which I do understand. It's very similar to what Megamus was saying about Optimus and Bumblebee. The problem is, in the 90s, when you had Beast Wars, that was the equivalent of letting the young Avengers, say, become the new Avengers. And they're so afraid to let that progress, maybe because of what happened with the 86 movie when they killed off Optimus Prime and they got the backlash. Well, I'm just saying.
No, I get it, but I'm going to bounce off the top you just said, which does make sense. I do believe that they should have included more Beast Wars cast in main positions and not background characters.
Rhinox
To bring along the next generation. Now, having
Yeah.
said that, you're right. Marvel hasn't, because until we get a young Avengers that does well and shows that you can take not what you would consider your quote-unquote core characters, but the next generation of those characters, and make a movie, they're not going to do it.
right,
Because they think it's too risky.
right.
Well,
despite the fact with Beast Wars having, whether or not you like Beast Wars or not, it saved the franchise. I don't think
Absolutely.
you cannot say, well, Beast Wars didn't. G2 didn't save the franchise. As much as I would love to admit it, it did not save the franchise. But it put in place some technology advancements that allowed Beast Wars to capitalize on that. So,
Yes.
would Beast Wars have been as successful without G2? In some ways, I don't think so.
no.
I don't
But-
know, because would they have gotten
but-
that technology for Beast Wars instead of G2? I don't know.
But the thing is, that's why they will not, with the movies. They are so afraid of taking those chances that they took with Beast Wars in this client. They're doing what makes money, which I get. But we
Well-
will never have an Optimus Primal as the lead again unless it's some kind of alternate reality that's going to be undone by the time it's finished, or it's going to be a
But you
small
would still
self.
have. But what you're saying is, even if you did that, you would still have the core class of characters that they would want. Prime, Bumblebee,
Right.
that.
Yeah.
It was
But
such a
here's the thing that gets me. Who's in a better position to do this? And let's just, because we just talked about two different classifications, Marvel's and Marvel Universe and Transformers Universe. I think the transition to Beast Wars would be easier for Transformers than it would be for something like Young Avengers for Marvel.
Right. Because you have so many Marvel people my age, y'all's age, that is so entrenched on keeping it
Sure.
just like it is. Everyone screams, give us something new. Well, here's something new and exciting. We want
But we
the
don't
old
like it.
stuff.
But we don't like it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well,
Here's the funny part. But think about the next generation that came on. Like even myself, when I came back, it was because of Beast Wars. So I can relate to that. So you have people as far back as in '95 that were relating to Beast Wars. So with Marvel, with this new stuff, I mean, Young Avengers only came out in 10, 12, somewhere around in there.
somewhere
So
around there.
you have a shorter, but I seriously believe that if Hasbro would do that and show that a movie is viable with a new generation, Marvel would have to look at that and follow
Well,
suit.
I don't think so because the problem is Hasbro, in their current financial situation, they're not going to take any risks
Oh, no,
on storytelling or on this Age of the Primes is being a more of a stretch than I thought they would do, given their current financial situation.
you're
On
missing
some-
what I'm saying, though. I'm saying that if Hasbro did that, Marvel would have to follow suit because it's a good idea. Now, did I say Hasbro would do that? No, because
No.
they do not want to take the risk. I
Well,
get it.
let's
Yeah,
let's.
Mar-
Well, I was going
Go
to
ahead,
say
go.
something. Talking about risks, right? Okay. You look at the demographics of all the movies that have been released for Transformers. Every single solitary one of them. Bumblebee made more money, but didn't make enough. Broke even. So did Rise of the Beast. Transformers 1 flopped because poor advertising. But let's
Yes.
rewind this back a little bit.
It's
Bumblebee
poor advertising.
and Rise of the Beast, Michael Bay was actually involved with still. And the thing is, some people are really mad because they're bringing him back. I'm like, no. Honestly, the guy knows what he's doing when it comes to certain things. Now, I can tell you what's causing the decline of a lot of these numbers is the fact that how long is a movie in theaters before, okay, one second. How long after a movie is out of a theater ends up on streaming service? Between at least
it's-
2 weeks to a month.
Yeah, and it's
Sometimes
like they,
quicker.
yeah,
Why do you think
And
they're not
I
making the
never-
money then?
right.
It's simple.
Because
They're waiting on it to get on streaming.
yeah, they're trying to get as much money from Plan A, and as soon as they think they're not on solid ground, switch to Plan B. Okay, this isn't the problem. Is Jason? I'm going to bring this up, and I'm not big into video games anymore. But there's a reviewer that I watch called James Sterling, and
I'm familiar with them.
and there's something that she says. All the money is not enough. Basically, they want infinite growth, infinite profit, more money year after year. This is more for video games than it is the toy industry, but there's still some parallels. No, so they might make money, they might make a profit, but it's not enough.
Right.
It will
Yeah,
never.
that's
be
been a
enough.
huge problem in the gaming industry because now they're getting to the point where I think it does also translate into the into Hollywood because Hollywood I think was on this trajectory before video games got on this trajectory where budgets inflate so much that think of video games now like AAA, you know, the cream of the crop video games, the things that are supposed to be the best games on the market. They gotta sell something like 5 million to 7 million copies or something like that to break even.
And this- yeah,
It's,
and
that is an impossible number to sell.
Right,
You're
and
not going to sell that.
even if they do, the studio is shut down. These studios that have been bought up by these conglomerates make these games. These games are popular. They make money. Marvel Rivals, from what I understand.
Mhm.
And then the studio shut down and the people are fired because it didn't make what they thought it would make. And by firing all them people, they
And
dumped more money to the bottom line.
Hollywood has the same problem where budgets for these movies have become astronomical, which is why there's been a big push into like international markets. That's why there was a big push into China. You know, we saw that with Dark of the Moon.
Yeah.
But I mean,
But it's because the need to make as much money at the box office as possible to break even has become
Well,
astronomical.
here's something to think about. Okay, um, big titles, from whatever franchise, rely on relationships with other media, whether it be toy sales or ticket sales or whatever. I mean, if nothing else, George Lucas has shown us that box office sales aren't the bottom line. That you make more money on the back end. So they know these things. Okay? Merchandising, promotion, everything. T-shirts, soap, whatever. If Spaceballs hasn't shown us anything, is that you put the name on it and slap it on there and it's a marketable item. Yes.
Look at the new Superman. It's not even
Absolutely.
out yet, and I've seen people wearing the shirts.
same thing with Jurassic Park.
Everything.
The new one. It releases in
Yes.
a couple days,
Yes.
and there's already tons of merchandise for that.
Everyone's
So
going wild.
here's my question, and this kind of goes along with that. But we just went through the pandemic, where we saw a lot of Hollywood go down. Less coming out of Hollywood, less money going into Hollywood, and yet we saw foreign films, Korean films, spike. And then you get series like Squid Games, and all these other little ones that the production cost was down, but the market was there. The audience, hell, they're in their house. You've kind of got them, and it spiked. And the reason I say that is because we're not in the pandemic anymore, and yet they just released the new series, and it's off the charts.
Well, the streaming.
My point is I think at some point Hollywood has phased themselves out due to their own expense.
Yeah, they've gotten too expensive.
Absolutely.
And a little bit on that. Well, and maybe we come back to it, but just a little bit on the note. When it comes to like foreign, we see a lot of foreign media properties doing really well, especially things like anime. Yeah. I keep saying to people, they need to have an anime studio make a Transformers series. They need to break out because we've whenever they do try it, they make a kids property out of Transformers, right? And anime is not inherently not a kid's property, but it usually tends more to young adults or to teenagers or young adults.
So you're wanting like a Rick and Morty Transformers? Is that what you're talking about?
Not even that.
No.
I'm talking like anyone who's
sorry,
Studio Trigger. Yes,
when they did that anniversary,
it was amazing.
Do that. Give us that.
I'm a big Studio Trigger fan, and I know we're going into like weeb territory. I'm a huge weeb.
Dude, territory is fine.
I'm a big Studio Trigger fan. They did the Gridman anime, and it had a lot of homages to Transformers because their team is Transformers fans. And when you saw that anniversary video, you see that they're Transformers fans, and I'm like, Hasbro is missing an opportunity if they're not trying to get these guys to make a series.
As someone that hasn't seen that, what are we talking about? Are we talking about a more mature theme?
No, it's just
anime.
Really well done animation.
Yeah. And I mean, I would say that usually it tends towards, it tends towards teenagers is really that market that the anime usually hits. And I know, and it's kind of weird because in Japan usually tends even more younger. Like every time recently, like when they did that one where Optimus turned into a train during the Transformers Prime era, or with the Transformers Wild that they're doing now, they're like targeted to very young kids. But like anime usually targets more like teenagers, so it wouldn't be like it wouldn't be like Michael Bay having Shia LaBeouf curse, but it would be something a little more mature, a little more like
Are you
You
talking
know,
like mature storyline or what?
yeah, typically mature storyline.
Let me ask you this.
Probably more action combat would be more,
Okay,
visceral than
is anyone here?
normal.
I'm sure they have watched the original Robotech.
Yes.
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 Of course you did.
Yes.
In
Yeah.
my opinion, that was a little above the class of age level they were looking for. It was just a little above.
Yes.
I got started a little bit before that with Star Blazers. That's
You're
what
right
got
with that
me.
too. But
That's
my
what
thing
got
was,
me that level
Okay.
of storytelling.
yeah,
Yeah.
so there was another series that came out called Do You Remember Love?
Mhm.
And that was even more. You're talking like, I mean, I remember my dad coming in and watching Robotech and going, this is like animated soap opera. And I'm like, yeah, pretty much it
Mhm.
is. But then they raised the level with, Do You Remember Love? Because it was more character based, and there was a lot of fight scenes, this, that, and the other, and all that, but it was more character based and storytelling. I think that if they did something like that with Transformers, I think it would do well. The problem is they try and do that, and then they do the campy stuff, and then, in my opinion, you're focusing more on the human characters, which are campy and stupid,
Mhm.
and not the story. And I'm sorry, but that's Shia LaBeouf in a nutshell.
Yeah.
right there.
Well, yeah,
And-
but
and
if
the-
you look at the way the Bumblebee movie was done, and some of Rise of the Beast, the characterization of the Transformer characters was pretty well done. There were some
It
they
was
could have
better.
done more, but they did better with it. They were going in the right
Cheetor-
direction. with
Cheetor
it.
could have said more than 2 lines.
Yeah.
Rhinox could have said at least one thing.
Well, let me
Iteration of
ask you this.
Transformers.
Right.
Yeah,
Let
right.
me ask you
Everything.
this, and I can't.
I loved
I
Primal,
watched
though.
all
Primal
the
was a good character.
I watched all the live action movies. Could I recite them? Absolutely not. I've actually chosen to, forget most of that stuff anyway. But I cannot for the life of me think of anything,
Self-neuralized.
any movie to where the robots didn't have a better scene than the humans. And the humans were all campy and just goofy and, we've got
Oh,
teenage
please.
hormone things going and just stupid stuff.
Yeah,
We
that
have
Yeah,
seen
that was the big problem with those ones.
we
Yeah.
have seen them do good humans. Sorry, Sumdac, Miko, Jack, and Raph.
Mhm.
Benny and his son. That RID 2015. I liked. I do not.
No,
consider-
I'm talking about the
saying-
live action.
I know, but I'm just saying, we've seen good humans add a lot to the Transformers
absolutely.
story,
Yes,
but they,
if
for
they
some
just
reason,
won't do it.
they won't do it because they want to make the silly, the slapstick, the
Yeah,
the guy,
it's the summer pop.
guy that, yeah, the guy that was in the last night, the one that got turned into stone by lockdown or something like that.
Yeah.
He contributed absolutely nothing to the movie other than just taking time away from other people that may have had more to do. Write good humans. Don't write stupid humans doing stupid things
Yeah.
as plot convenience.
well,
That's
think
the
about
problem.
this. Because we all know, spoiler alert, if anybody didn't know this, into the Rise of the Beast, there's the card flies up about G.I. Joe. Now, if you think
Bunch of
about
crap.
this, now think about this. Bunch of crap, yeah, no. Oh no! Think about this. The way Michael Bay is able to communicate with the military like he was, the way he was able to do all this stuff in those movies and blow things up the way he does, he has a good connection there. If they do this the correct way, because I don't know if you guys know this, they have another 5 movies slotted, a total of 5.
Let's see if one makes money first.
That's the question.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
but
that'll be
That,
Yeah.
that might get mixed.
this is a stretch. I know there's supposed to be 5. But think of this: if Michael Bay is able to actually pull off the magic, he could. Think about the way the G.I. Joe movies were made. They weren't made the greatest, What
Oh
if
my God.
Michael Bay would have done those? It would have been completely different and would have been off the chain. Because Michael Bay knows how to shoot that stuff. So, if you're mixing
He shoots
Transformers
military
and
pretty
G.I.
good.
Joe together in
my
this,
God.
do you think it's going to turn out okay? Because I personally think it'll probably flourish more, especially if you have less characters.
It couldn't be any worse.
I
That's
don't
what
know.
I'm saying.
I do think that the best characters that Michael Bay had in his movies were always the military characters.
I know. I get
It's
it.
all
but
the other ones
G.I.
that are.
Joe, G.I.
Yeah.
Joe is not military characters. They are individual characters with different, you know, backstories and different abilities and everything. And
Yeah.
every single time I've seen them on the big screen, they've screwed it up. They're screwed up. Every one of them. Think about it.
And see, I don't know enough about.
Destro, they screwed up. Baroness, they screwed up. Cobra Commander, they screwed up. They even screwed up Snake Eyes, Storm Shadow. All of them. Not one of the live action is anywhere close to the actual canon that we grew up with.
That's true.
Not a one.
But you got to think. Let's take ourselves out of, some of us have to pull off the rose-colored glasses. I'm going to be one of them. Okay. If you look at the modern demographic, like Sideburns' age and a little younger, Michael Bay stuff was thrown at you consistently. Consistently. They grew up with that. That is their first Transformers. Now think of this. Say, a lot of us grew up watching Generation 1. Say there was no definitive ending to the Generation 1 stuff like there was, right? Much like the last Michael Bay movie, there was no ending to their movie. Unicron was coming out of the earth. That was how they ended it. What the heck?
Yeah, because
so they need closure. They do. I don't like to see people have a movie come out and then not get closure. Does that make sense? And I think if they do this the right way, if they have Michael Bay do it the right way, they can bring in G.I. Joe to help cushion the campy silliness that we've been seeing from civilian people in some of the Transformer movies, to make it have a little bit more of a serious tone. But hey, who's to say Optimus can't just pass over the torch in the new ones and say, here, Optimal Optimus, you're in charge now. You guys are going to hide like animals instead of vehicles because they've been on to you for too long.
The problem is that I totally agree, but when you look at what they see as mature storytelling, we get the War for Cybertron trilogy, which was Drek. And that was done because it was supposed to be dark and gritty. So I don't want to see that in like live action movies because they think that's what's going to sell. And it won't. And you're going to have the Beast characters relegated to, again, they're not going to want, like we talked earlier, they're not going to want to take the chance on making them the main characters. And it's just, we're not asking to make a movie just for us. We want good storytelling and it not be stupid. We are not idiots. We know how to follow. I've been watching Doctor Who for almost 40 years. Okay? I know how to follow a story. Do not write dumb crap and pass it off as smart if you're going to a TV tropes page and you're doing stuff to hit all the bullet points and you're calling that a movie.
That's very true. My thing, like I said, I want to see the torch be passed along. I think it's time. It allows them to break away from this general consensus that we just got Megatron versus Optimus Prime all the time. If they're able to pass along the torch, I mean, come on, Scourge was like the big baddie in the last movie, and he did phenomenal, and a lot of people like that character. They made people like, a villain, other than Megatron.
I think the biggest problem.
They need
the biggest
to do
problem
that
with the
more
last
often.
two. Yeah. The biggest problem with the last two movies is the sort of nebulous connection to the Bayverse. because
Yeah, it's,
there's that it isn't line it walks all the time. That I think general studio audiences find confusing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and two, I think ties it to stuff that people, a lot of people, half the people want a resolution for because people watched like you said, people watched the last night or
Yeah, last night.
whatever, and they literally never finished the storyline, and then another set of people that want them to not connect back into those and go its own direction. And that's where, like, announcing that they plan on doing 5 more movies is like, I would love, I don't. They'll never do it because it's too risky. Because there is a value to always adding to a pre-established franchise.
Mm-hmm.
So continuing with the Bayverse stuff, there's value in that because people expect. Then people go to the movie knowing what to expect. But I think there's also a loss in that at this point because I don't think a lot of people expect much from a Transformer.
Not now, they don't. Because
and there's a lot less people. Yeah. And there's a lot less people going to movie theaters as it is.
Yeah.
And it's not you can do campy, you can do cheesy and be very successful. Like Godzilla GXK, the Godzilla X Kong, the New Empire, is the campiest Godzilla movie to date in the MonsterVerse, and it did well. I think it was like it might have been the most successful one, especially in international audiences. But it's a balancing act. It's something that, and I don't think the Transformers franchise has never been good at walking that balance.
Well, a lot of it does boil down to writing, but it also depends on like the direction they decide to take things. Like the reason, to me, the last night shattered as bad as it did is because you guys weren't here at the very beginning, but they literally took 3 plot lines and tried to shove them in a 2.5-hour movie, and never actually had a finished plot line. If you think about it, if you took those 3 ideas and made those all 3 individual movies, what would you think? Transformers during the medieval age, Transformers during World War II, think about how different those movies would have been if they were allowed to have the room to breathe instead of getting shoved in a box. We got to get it out by this time. But that's what producers want. They don't care about the story. And it's like, okay, you want to know why you lost money? Well, that's why, because you shoot.
I think that was a big positive for Bumblebee is that it reduced down all the plot points and characters to what really 3 characters, right?
Yeah. Did it sell toys? Yeah, it sold toys. Still.
Well, and when we were talking about War for Cybertron, one of the problems with that Netflix series was it kind of went back to being a toy commercial. But
go ahead, Don.
No, it's just being the oldest one of the group. I have seen a lot of good animation. I've seen a lot of bad animation. I've seen a lot of animation that was just, I was whelmed, to use the old phrase. I want to see people look at it and say, okay, we're going to write with respect to the source material. We're not going to be slavish to it, but we're going to put some time, we're going to put some money, we're going to get the best people for the voice actors if it's an animated series, and they stop looking at how cheap can we get this done, which I understand this is a business. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that they make a smart, tight movie like Transformers 1. Market it properly, like they didn't do for Transformers 1,
Mhm.
they will make the money they want by not making something stupid that's talking down to either the younger kids. Make something that makes them think just a little bit, and when they get to the conclusion that they have been waiting for, they'll like the movie better because they felt like they weren't being talked down to, and it was a tighter movie. It was a smarter movie. I think this is possible. We all have favorite shows: animated, live action, CGI, whatever the case may be. Look at Reboot. Reboot was the first CGI show. Yes, it visually does not hold up. That doesn't bother me. I know people that can't watch Beast Wars because of the CGI. But that doesn't bother me because the story, the writing, the care, put care into these projects, you will make the money. Don't look at it as like, let's maximize, no pun intended, every single dollar we can, and with this little amount of budget, and we'll make so much money because we have so little invested. Well, if you don't invest in the movie, you don't invest in a good plot, you don't invest in good writers, you don't invest in good actors, good voice actors, why should we care about what's on the screen when it's clear you didn't? We are not dumb. And yeah, you got our $7 for a matinee or whatever the hell a matinee goes for now.
Yeah.
But that's all you're getting from me. I'll tell you, reason I'm saying this. You want a smart movie. You want a fun movie. Wreck-It Ralph. This was right around the time my mom passed away. By the time I joined RFC, this was about right after Mom died, I saw it in theaters 5 times. I paid matinee price or more because the movie was smart. It was animation that I could enjoy. It did not talk down to the audience. I felt like I was being told a story at my age level that I enjoyed, and the kids were getting what they wanted out of it.
Mm-hmm.
You can make a good movie with a little bit more money, but it's the care. Put the care, put the time. Stop trying to make the lowest common denominator slop and think, oh, every seat we make $1.50 for every seat, every person we see. Yeah, but that's all you get is $1.50. You got nobody. Did anybody actually go back in theaters and see any of the live action Michael Bay movies after the first time? If you went to the theaters and saw it in theaters, did you go back? I never did.
I never watched it the first time.
I will correct myself. I may have gone back and caught a matinee of the first one. That was more for seeing certain scenes on the big screen, like when Optimus shows up in the back alley. Mm-hmm. That was worth matinee price, just watching it on the big screen. That's all I'm saying. Put some care. You don't have to throw all the money. Throw the time and the care.
Right.
Well, that's kind of what I was saying with these. They're low budget, made for TV, made for Netflix.
They look slick, but that's it.
But the thing is they work. They work, and why? Like even Squid Games, why did it work? Because the story was good. Because the acting was good. It didn't. They had like 6 or 7, sets on one location, so it was cheap. It was on the cheap, but it was good.
It all boils down to writing.
Michael Bay with all his, flares and lights and all that, and in the end, if you make a crappy plot with no story development, no character development, no backstory, you've got a really, really shiny turd.
That's what I was saying about just the fact is it's all gloss. There's no substance. There's no depth. It's a TV tropes page brought to life.
Right.
Well, here's the thing. And you guys were talking about G.I. Joe, okay? G.I. Joe's had a couple movies, and I'm telling you, all of them are garbage. total garbage.
I like
And the
garbage every
fact
now and
that-
then, though.
And the reason I can say this is we were also talking before the show about all the different Batman movies and alliterations, this, that, and the other. And someone, Jason, brought up the Joker and how he thought it was a good movie. And I'm like, okay, yeah, you're talking about real world problems, real world applications, but that same story could have been made without the word Joker.
Well, yeah, I agree. I can understand what you're getting at there when that.
Hang on, I can expand though.
Okay.
So if you take any of those G.I. Joe movies, take out the names, you get the same story. And you don't tick off all the G.I. Joe fans.
Here's the thing: Hasbro owns GI Joe. There's no licensing fees. It's not Star Wars. You own these characters. There's no
Sure.
one to pay. Therefore, you have so much money you're saving by not paying a licensor like on a Star Wars movie.
Sure.
'Cause that's why Black Series toys, I think, are, even though I have got to the point where I am completely apathetic towards anything Star Wars. The rare occasion of maybe a figure or two that looks cool on the shelf. Other than that, but they own G.I. Joe. They
I
could
get
make
it,
a
but
G.I.
guess
Joe-
what? If you own the rights to something, it doesn't give you the right to butcher it.
Right.
And that's what
But
they
I'm-
did with these two movies. If you ask any G.I. Joe fan at all, anything about these two movies, there's nothing good to be said.
Well, here's a good
And
contrast.
In my opinion, that's what they're doing with Transformers.
Okay. Because I can see a good contrast there. Because you think about this. Think about the A-Team movie. Did any of you guys see the A-Team movie?
I did.
I
That could have
thought it was
been a
fun.
G.I. Joe movie.
I didn't
but-
mind it. I thought
Could've
it
been.
captured the spirit of the A-Team
Exactly.
fairly decently.
I agree with that
Yeah.
100%.
But
If
it
you
could
look at
cross over into the
characters-
G.I. Joe stuff, though, the way it was made.
No, because the characters were specific towards the characters we grew up with. They were dead on every character. Unlike the new Transformers movies.
But the
They don't
over-the-topness
look
of
at
it.
they don't look at the originality.
I mean, you can do
Wow.
over the topness. I mean, people love they were on like John Wick 5 or something like that. John Wick is over the
Oh,
top,
please don't.
right? Like,
Please don't.
and people love that. Love that. I'm just saying you could do over the top and be very successful.
Yeah, but the campiness of John Wick was the fact that it was over the top.
yeah,
That
but
was
that's what I'm
cool.
saying is you
But it had
should
no
be
more to
able
make off
to
of.
if you respected it enough, you should be able to do an over the top an over top GI Joe movie that respects the source material without it having to be bad, right?
Yeah.
can. But if you want to just make a movie, slap the names on there to get some people to go
Yeah.
to it for the simple same with the names, that's wrong.
And that's a
And
big
what they've
problem
been
with
doing.
Well, that's
that's a big problem, and that's been a problem with Hollywood for 30, 40 years is slapping franchise names on things for.
Well, let me ask you something.
And there's
in one of the
even
last movies. Hang on, one of the last movies, Jazz.
Mhm.
What were his abilities? Mirage. What were his abilities?
I
Hound.
mean, they at least gave Mirage the
They mixed them up.
they at least gave the Mirage the ability to do like the holographic
a hologram.
stuff.
Yeah. But he didn't do that. He disappeared. Hound.
Yeah,
did.
it was Hound that did the well.
Thank
Well,
you.
I don't know, what's
There
their
you go.
I see where you're going with this when it comes to having certain characters have a certain ability. That works fine in cartoon format, but when it comes to a live action thing, the problem is one of the biggest problems with the first Michael Bay movies, way too many characters. They
Well,
weren't honing in on each character's strength. They
Hang
were
on.
just doing whatever they want with them.
Sure, but let me say this. Okay, maybe I went into the movies thinking I was going to see my G1 characters, and I had that idea. And maybe some people went in there saying, "Nope, I just want to see a movie that had Transformers." So maybe that's where I'm wrong, and I'll take it if I'm wrong. I went in there wanting to see Prime as Prime, Bumblebee is Bumblebee. Every one of my characters with their abilities the way they were, and they butchered it.
Was character assassination.
Yeah.
In my,
Yeah.
in my opinion, if you look at the movies overall, it was character assassination.
I agree.
And I wonder how much of it was coming out of, well, because we were literally coming out of the Unicron trilogy era, which is the notorious age of using character names for trademarks and nothing
You're
else.
right.
Mm-hmm.
You're right. I don't think that had anything to do with it. I literally think that the directors and everything got a list of names and abilities, and they just pick and chose. Pick and chose
Well, and that's
what they wanted, and they just made their own. They made their own crap up. Is what they did.
Well, yeah, sure, and that's a little bit of where I was kind of. I think that what they got was very basic information. They had very basic information on this is an Ironhide, this is a Ratchet, this is an Optimus Prime, and then they just wrote characters. They wrote characters with those names, right?
I get it, but that was on their own choosing because anyone with a phone can figure out what any character is because there's
not in
thousands of
2007.
people.
No.
Yeah, they could because there were still databases out there of these characters. And
I just mean you couldn't do it. Like you could do it on a computer. I mean,
you know what I mean.
Flip phones.
It wasn't that hard. If you're going to make a movie, do the damn research.
Yeah, and I don't think there's not a lot of respect for source material in Hollywood in general, in my opinion.
No, because they go, this is flashy. This is what sells.
Yeah.
Well, think about this. Like, if you look at any robot mecha that's made in like Hollywood fashion, like think about movies like Space Jocks, or not Space Jocks, but Robot Jocks. Yeah, you might giggle at it, but what would happen if you had stop motion-ish Transformers that were put in the background doing that kind of thing in that style? It's live action. Would it give you the characterization you want? Probably not.
I was scoffing. I was scoffing more for the idea of the movie than I was the animation and the still that they did and everything, because I actually thought it was funny.
Yeah, I absolutely love that movie.
It was just a funny, don't take serious movie.
Right.
That's all it was.
But that's the thing. I think that's the issue with, like, all of us fans of Transformers have literally looked at all this stuff. We take everything so serious, but it's like, well, how does this version connect with this version that connects to this version? We're always trying to connect dots whenever it could just, like, let something float and be itself. Whatever happened to that? Like, there's been many, many, many times they took something and it is its own thing. It may be loosely connected to whatever the source material was, and it turned out good. So that can happen if it's written right.
Let's pull Easter eggs and all that stuff aside.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, let's just talk about the idea in and of itself. So, if you take the idea of what we know as Transformers, and people that watch it and really like it, and here's the problem: idolize it. They've set standards that are very hard to meet. Okay, then they try and convey that to other people, and they hear keywords: Optimus Prime, Bumblebee, Autobot, Decepticon, and they go see a movie, and they went, "This is exactly what I thought it was going to be." Just because the original person's idea isn't the same as what this new person is doesn't make it wrong. There's two different ideas and they're both right. What I'm saying is that what they're seeing in their sales is that marketing towards an older generation, but putting out, in my opinion, garbage towards a new generation is lower sales. Well, they need to redo their whole thinking of the brand.
Well, that's they have issue killed off everything.
Yeah, well, sure. They have killed off the, and some of it is a sign of just the sort of era we're in. You know, there's a lot more value to electronics and stuff like that. You know, but they have killed off, in my opinion, their younger audience, almost completely. And I feel like
they did that themselves.
yeah, and I feel like there was a trend away. There's been a trend away from properties for, kids' properties aren't as successful as they used to be. But even then, I feel like they've killed off their younger audience, and a lot of that was themselves. But then they find themselves like rigidly beholden to their older audience, which I think is also starting to backfire on them, because you have a lot of, if you were 10 years old when the 2007 movie came out, you are approaching your 30s now, and in my opinion, a lot of that nostalgia and collector
mentality
comes back in your 30s. And they're getting to that age where I feel they're gonna start having that nostalgia for these things again, and what are we gonna see when they hit that that time period? Because right now, as a Beast Wars fan, I mean, I got a lot of Beast Wars. They finally made me happy in Kingdom, right? But as a Beast Wars fan, when I go to the store, there's nothing on the shelves for me. If you're an Armada fan, there's a few. If you're an animator, there's a few.
Sure.
But eventually, you're going to go there, and there's not going to be anything for those fans, because there's
let me ask you this.
G1 on the shelves, G1 everywhere.
let me ask you this: when you were 10 to 15 years old, what was on the shelves? What was in the movies? What was the trend?
I mean, 10 to 15 years old. I mean, on the shelves for
toys,
Transformers was
just toys in general. What was the big thing?
What was the big thing?
Power Rangers?
The Unicron trilogy era.
Power Rangers was big during that time too, though. Still,
I'm not talking about Transformers.
I'm trying.
Trends in general.
Right. I'm just trying to think. I'm trying to relate what was out that time period with what was out on the shelves. I was a uniquely focused individual on Transformers since 1996. But what was big? I mean, I guess it was probably the first batch of Marvel movies, the Raimi Spider-Man movies.
Okay, so you had Spider-Man. Did you have video games?
Oh yeah, tons of video games. I mean,
sure, you had tons of video. What about trading cards?
Pokemon,
all that stuff.
Dragon Balls.
Yeah.
Sure. Hey, Don.
Yes.
When you were 15, same question.
Well, when I was
Star
15,
Wars and what?
Hey, I was 15. Ghostbusters was 84. Ghostbusters, Back to the Future, maybe that was 40 years ago, literally. I just turned 55 last weekend, so that was 4 decades ago. So Ghostbusters,
happy birthday.
I get it. I'm right there, too. So
yeah, I turned 37 3 days ago.
I'm far behind y'all.
Yeah.
Just remember, Don, you're only less than a year older than me, so.
But yeah, that's what I remember. Is like Ghostbusters, Back to the Future, stuff like that.
Video games?
That was around the video game crash.
I had an Atari 2600.
Yeah, but it was very sparse.
Yeah, but I'm saying I didn't have anything new.
Sure.
Video game wise until I was out.
Okay.
Until I was living on my own.
Okay, trading cards.
Marvel, I think I had some Marvel.
You had some Marvel. You had baseball cards. You had football cards, stuff like that. My point is that when we were there, it was literally what you saw in the cartoon and when you saw on the shelves in terms of toys. And then I'm not going to use the term boy or girl, but if you were fashioned one way, you went to action figures. If you were fashioned another way, you went towards other things. So you look down the toy aisle, and that's what you had to compete with. So Hasbro and Kenner had a specific window to compete. Boys towards action figures, action figures, action figure. That's it. Fast forward to where you're at. Hasbro's looking at, well, we have all these action figures. Yeah, but then we have this PlayStation, this Sony, this whatever, all this, that, and the other. Then we have Yu-Gi-Oh! We have this, that, and the other. There's so many ways to spread from. So the dollar, which the dollar is finite.
Mhm.
The selling and the amount of stuff is infinite. How do they grab those? And that's where they're going to have to market it, because they have to think, who are those people now that are in their 30s and 40s that are going to be buying this? We have to, focus our interest towards that.
And that was because I mean it's a good point, but that was the weird thing about like Hasbro, because Hasbro's CEO, I believe, used to be the CEO of EA or something like that. And his big thing has been
Yeah, you're right.
video games and stuff like that.
Microsoft.
And Hasbro had like the Hasbro Studios they opened that was supposed to be for making video games and stuff like that. And then they didn't do anything.
Well, that's because they saw a market that they needed to invest in, but they didn't invest upon it.
Because it's like they did that right after what were, in my opinion, the two most well-received Transformers games, the High Moon War for Cybertron and Fall of Cybertron games.
And what did they do with that studio? They dissolved it.
Well, they didn't. They dissolved it into Call of Duty. I mean, it still exists, but they make maps for Call of Duty now. Yeah. And Hasbro was like, okay, we're gonna, it was there during that time where they decided to cancel animated, and go and make their own the Hub network, right? And they owned their own network. They were gonna make their own video games, and they had this popular movie franchise, and then they didn't make their own video game. They've made some video games. They've all flopped. They've I don't know. They've not targeted the main audience of video game consumers. And then the Hub flopped. And then the movies, and they're still making movies, but it's not. They don't have the name or brand power they had at the time. And it was like, what did they do during that? Like, how did they sort of fumble it? It sort of seemed like they could have used Hasbro Studios, that the studio they opened to make games, to make something to get into that very market that they are competing with. They are competing with the video game market. And they just squandered that whole entire thing. And then they had a very good card game that came out. The Transformers card game that was made by Wizards of the Coast was good. It didn't pick up the audience it needed to continue.
Don't even get me started on Wizard of the Coast. They've just shot themselves in the foot so hard. It's not even fun.
Well, everything over there at Hasbro.
Sure, it wasn't the Pinkertons.
that was ridiculous.
Yeah,
that was something else.
Yeah. Well, here I'm going to sort of sum up all my thoughts. Just we don't want for the studios to think we're going to just sit there and mindlessly consume lowest common denominator schleck because it has these pastiches of characters that we're willing to pay money for. That's not storytelling. Yes, you have to make money. Yes, it is a business, but you're also storytellers. Give us a story. Don't give us AI slop. You have craftsmen, you have professionals that can do the job the way it needs to be done. And if you, like I said earlier, if you put the care and the attention, not be slavish, be respectful to the source material, you will make your money because you're giving a product people want. Imagine if Transformers 1 had been marketed properly. I don't know what the marketing company is or was for that movie, but they need to be dragged out to the outhouse and paddled because
Because
it was abysmal.
that first
You
trailer
are
that
very
they ever
kind, by the way.
that first trailer they ever released for Transformers One, I was like, I mean, it was kind of funny, but it's like, what am I going to go see a campy kids movie? I'm not going to go see a campy kids movie by myself.
Well, that was the problem. That's the whole reason why a lot of people did not go see that Transformers movie, is that first trailer. Everybody has to remember, when it comes to a movie, the very first trailer is what 90% of your audience that might even have slight interest is going to watch. If you haven't caught them within that, you're done. That first trailer was more geared toward kids than it was the adults. If they would have, I don't know, released a second trailer that they did, it would have landed harder because it would have had the campiness, but it still would have had the adult side, and more people probably would have went to see it in the theater. I'm saying probably because the only reason why it made the money it did is because us fans helped fuel it. But we can't really blame Hasbro for that, because the general audience is who they're trying to appeal to, not just a Transformers fan. I think that's where a lot of people need to realize with any of these movies why the Michael Bay stuff made what it did was because it went toward a general audience more than it did a hardcore fan. I know sometimes everything isn't going to turn out right. Remember the Masters of the Universe movie from the 80s? There's a perfect example.
Yeah.
So, there you go. If you guys had never seen the Masters of the Universe movie from the 80s,
I have.
go back and watch it. You guys will probably be like, what on earth did they do to He-Man? It's
Fluttering was amazing.
Yeah. But the thing is, some people didn't like it. It wasn't the cartoon. So, you see what I'm getting at? That's why I'm trying to say the general audience is what's really going to be trying to gear this toward. That's why Hasbro has brought Bay back to the forefront instead of letting him in the background like he did during the Bumblebee and Rise of the Beast stuff, because he actually made them money. Unfortunately.
Here's the thing I'm going to say about the last movies. They would not pick something and stick with it. Is it a reboot? Is it a continuation? Is it a soft reboot? Is it kind of sort of continuation with Rise of the Beast? We're not asking for bulletproof continuity. We're asking you to just either come out and tell us we are rebooting it. That Bumblebee is a fresh start to the Transformers universe. Okay, fine. That's fine. We can deal with that. Or say, hey, this is a prequel to the first couple of movies, and then make sure it fits. That's why Robots in Disguise 2015, to me, is not a sequel to Prime, because they forgot Prime even existed until the last season, when they were going around to all the places that they had been to during Prime, bringing up people and characters and stuff like that. Like, oh yeah, I forgot we're a sequel. Let's start name dropping stuff.
The most confusing thing.
No Miko, no Jack, no Raph.
Yeah, the most confusing thing Hasbro ever did, was the aligned continuity. It was the worst decision they ever made, because one, nothing aligned, and two, it made people compare it to what should have been aligned. When people think aligned as a word, they're going to think it's congruent, it's continuous, it fits within a lore that spreads across all of them, and that was nothing the aligned continuity ever was. And the Transformers movies have the same problem. I mean, if you look at the first movie, the first three Michael Bay movies, if we set everything else aside, the first three Michael Bay movies, Megatron came to Earth to get the Allspark to he came to Earth to help the fallen, harvest the sun, and he came to Earth to help Sentinel Prime, um, bring Cybertron to Earth to enslave the human race. Like he came to Earth for all three reasons, and it doesn't make any sense. And under scrutiny, as time goes by, as you scrutinize it, it starts to make less and less sense. I don't think people really cared when they were seeing the movies, but like that was just three movies under the same director and the same writers. And then you start throwing everything else into the mix, and it's like, at some point, the continuity is so incongruent that it starts to not benefit the entire whole, which is what made, to me, Bumblebee and Rise of the Beast even more confusing, even though I personally think they're better movies, because you have no idea where they are, how they fit in, if they're supposed to fit in, and it's like, what is this franchise anymore? There's just so many incongruencies that I can't even start to pretend that they all fit together anymore.
Yeah. So I'm going to let Brett wrap up because he has to bounce. So we're going to have him do his thing, and then he can go on and do his little thing. Then the three of us will probably end up doing our whole wrap up before we get out of here. So go ahead, man.
All right. So sorry. 4:45 in the morning comes early.
Understand.
Once again, it wouldn't be a show if my computer didn't crash. So that was awesome.
Hey, I was the one having technical difficulties earlier, but go ahead.
It's like every time we do it. It just anyway. I guess my big thing is if they're going to, and they are going to make another movie, they really need to bridge. I think it would be good to bridge the gap between the old and the new, which they've tried to do, but bring the G1, the 80s up into the new age, and then push it forward for the next generation, and so on. Because as much as I like G1 and I like the 80s and everything, it's not going to last forever. And we see, like when I was revived with Beast Wars, there's people that were revived with RID, Armada, with even the Bay universe. Oh my God, whatever. The whole idea is keeping that in there. But my only request would be keep the lore, keep the character, keep everyone, so that if I watch a movie 20 years from now that has Optimus Prime, Megatron, Soundwave, whatever, I can go, yeah, that's them. Based upon either how they look, how they act, or their personality. If you make everything fluent and continuation, you're going to connect more people than when you reinvent, redecide. And if nothing else, if you look at the Star Trek universe and how they have reinvented it several times, and you lose each time. If you make it, if we haven't learned anything else from the Star Wars universe, it's cohesive. If you go to the new stuff, they refer to the old stuff as canon. And I don't know about you guys, but if I was to put my stock into anything, it should have been Star Wars.
Yeah.
Star Wars is bank. So.
Well, yeah. I mean, I agree with you. I agree with you 100%, Brett. You go get some rest, man, because, like you said, you need some sleep.
I gotta go bed. Old man.
Old man's got to go. But
have a good one, man. Take care.
Yeah, we'll see you, man. You have a good night.
Bye.
But anyway, when it comes to this entire franchise, them bringing Bay back, do you guys think this is a mistake, or do you think this is going to be a good thing, and do you think we're going to get what we probably have been wanting for a while?
Uh, I'll let Sideburn go. 'Cause I have some thoughts.
I mean, I think it could be. I think it's that's a complicated question that I think it could be both at the same time. Because I do think Michael Bay has a way of making people excited for a movie. I think we'll get a trailer full of big things happening and explosions and cool stuff, and they'll frame it up in a way that makes it seem super, super cool. Because, for being perfectly honest, every trailer for the first three movies sold us a movie that we didn't see, but we were excited to go see it. And then you probably left the movie theater thinking it was nothing like the trailer, but the trailer got you there. So I think he will have a way. It might be a great way to get people back into the seats for a movie. I think they'll just sell us the same thing they've been selling us, though. I don't think it'll make sense. I don't think it'll be consistent. I don't think it will respect any source material if we want it to. I don't even think it'll respect the source material of the Paramount movies. And I think at this point, I don't know if the audience, because the audience that started, to my point earlier, the audience that started with that 2007 movie is older. They think about these things more. We're all old, and we've been thinking about it the whole entire time. And it's like I don't think that the movie itself, with Bay at the helm, is necessarily going to be a positive for the movie, but it might be a positive for getting butts in the seat, leading up to the movie.
Don?
I think right now Hasbro is looking for hype. They are licensing a lot of things out, like they did Power Rangers to Playmates. They are licensing parts and things that we would not see. Loyal Subjects got Mask, which brought income from Loyal Subjects with the licensing fees. I think what we're seeing is they're making these announcements to generate hype, to get investors, to get people optics on them, looking for opportunities with a new Michael Bay associated production. Do I actually feel we're going to get 5 movies? Probably not. I think this is on somebody's whiteboard, or I'm going to call it a hype board. Put out what is a blue sky prediction. This is what we're thinking about doing. This is what we really want to do. But, and then it'll fall back on the old caveat, we have to see how it does. And that's what they're doing, is they're looking to get hype built up, people like us talking about it, other people in the industry talking about it, people looking, hey, I want to be part of this, I want to invest in this, I think I can make money in this. You got money going to Hasbro, you got money going to whatever, if it's not Paramount, whatever movie company is making it. So I really don't think much will come of this. I may eat my words. I think we'll get 1 movie, maybe 2. I think it'll be, like Sideburn said, it'll be a lot of the same repackaged crap. They won't take any time. They won't look at the source material and be respectful. They won't be creative. They'll be too scared to be creative. And they want to do what they think will work to make the most money. So we're looking at 2 more movies that they will not commit. Where does this fall at all within the previous 7 movies or so? So, and if Bay does come back, he'll be a producer. He'll be a consultant. It'll be something legally tangible enough to say Michael Bay was involved in this picture without it being a Michael Bay film.
Well, that I have to actually argue with, because they've literally said he's directing.
Oh,
Have
they
literally
okay.
said this. They have announced it.
I did not know that. I did
Um,
not hear about that. I
yeah,
apologize.
they have. They have announced this. Looking at Michael Bay's track record since the last night, because he was involved with the Bumblebee movie, he was involved with Rise of the Beast, but he was not directing them.
Mhm.
Um,
It's like every
He
movie that
had
Steven Spielberg.
2 movies that he made that did not do well in the box office. He had
Mm-hmm.
a Netflix series that didn't do very good. But you know what he had that did really, really well? That really put him back on the map? He did a documentary. This documentary is about people doing parkour. And apparently, from what I've been told, I haven't seen it yet, it's off the chain, what I've been told. Literally. It's like one of the best things he's ever made. That is why I believe Paramount and Hasbro have looked at Bay again, saying, hey, you made money before. These other directors, because the last 3 movies didn't make any money at all for Transformers. It either broke even or didn't make enough. But Michael Bay was not in, he was involved, but he was not directing. All the other ones besides The Last Night made money. So they are looking at him as being the cash cow to bring in the funds, to bring the butts to the seats in the theater. Some people like going to the theater. I understand it's expensive, but there's a lot of people that I think they need to start really, really looking at the way the demographics of everything is nowadays. How many people wait until it comes on a streaming service to watch that movie? Used to, we had pay-per-view. That's really not even a thing either. If somebody wants to see a movie now, they pay like $1.99 or whatever. That's not going to make the billions of dollars that they're wanting to make.
I was really surprised. I was really surprised, and I'm guessing it has to be, I don't know, maybe movie theater chains still have enough leverage. But I was really surprised that the day one movie rental that was kind of tested during COVID didn't take off, because I would pay $20 to watch, to watch some of these movies at home and not have to go to the theater. Like, there are certain movies where I'm like, I'm gonna go see that in the theaters. I'm not gonna watch a Godzilla movie without seeing Godzilla actually being 200 feet tall.
Yeah, but this is my thing when it comes to movie theaters, because I used to work one. What brings people into a movie theater now compared to what used to bring us to movie theaters when we were younger?
Air conditioning.
Not just air conditioning, arcades. We don't have arcades anymore. What you guys do, the movie isn't going to start for another 20 minutes. I'm going to play Centipede for like 10. Now people come in, they buy their popcorn, they buy their drink, they get their snacks, they go sit down. Sometimes before, some people will come in right after the trailers are done, after they done clean the theater, they come in, they sit, the lights hadn't even dimmed, they don't even have trailers running yet, and they're sitting there twiddling their thumbs for like 20 minutes. Now think about this if you bring it, playing with their phones. If they bring their kids, the particular one I worked at actually had a kids theater where they had like a play place area in the theater for kids to play. But then when the movie came up, everything went dark, so they had to sit in their seat. But what do parents do with kids nowadays? Most of the time they just toss an electronic device in their hand, and it's cheaper to do that than it is to take them out to go see something that they could literally sit at home and do the same thing. That, I think, is what's going to hurt any of the franchises we've been talking about. Marvel, DC, Transformers. Heck, even My Little Pony isn't going to do well with this stuff. As cute as it is. I just think,
personally, a live action My Little Pony movie.
That money, that money that Hollywood wants to keep making isn't going to happen, because people can make a lot of this stuff. We saw through COVID, a lot of these lower budget films that have harder hardcore writing, less money, they're able to put out gold, and
think we need
Hollywood
shorter
throws
movies.
so much and they get nothing. So
I feel like I mean, just to throw an idea out there as we're coming towards the end, though, I feel like we need to go. I think back to when I was young. Going to the movie theater was an hour and 30-minute experience. It wasn't a 2 hour and 30-minute experience. And I do sometimes watch a movie and think movies are too long.
yeah, Don,
Well,
growing up, what movie what movie comes to mind that you can think of that actually had an intermission in theaters? It happened before you were probably even born, or close to it.
Well, the only movie that I
one
can
movie
think,
can you think of?
Gandhi.
Gone with the Wind.
Okay, I've never actually seen
Gone with the
from start
Wind
to
is
finish.
one of the first
I
extended
did not know that.
length films. It is enormously long. There's a reason why they had an intermission between it. They don't do that anymore. They expect someone to sit there for 2.5 hours to watch a movie.
And
I
I'm
personally
usually
think
like,
most movies that last an hour to 15 to an hour
Yeah.
and 45 is the sweet spot. Most of those movies I remember. I don't
Like
know
a
what
2
time
hour-
you guys are.
there are a few 2 hour and 30, like, Dune. I liked the length of the Dune movies. It would be hard to do those movies shorter. Same with like the Lord of the Rings movies.
Yeah,
But-
it's like you can never make the Lord of the Rings nowadays
Yeah.
with today's audiences in mind.
Uh-uh.
Because if they give you an intermission, if they're not liking what they're seeing, they will use that as an excuse to save face, and they will leave.
Yep.
And not finish the movie. That's another reason probably why you don't want to have an intermission on some of these movies, is there's a sunk cost fallacy involved. And if you pay $13 for a movie, and your spouse pays $13, and you pay the $10 for the kids, and you buy the outrageous popcorn and the outrageous drinks and all that crap, you take an average family of four, it costs $100 to go to the movie.
Mhm.
You're stuck. You're going to watch that movie to the bitter end, hoping to get your money's worth. 'Cause you
I wish
sunk
there were
so-
intermissions though.
Yeah, but
I'm usually like the largest cup of soda is already inside of me by halfway through the movie, and I need to go to the bathroom. you know?
I just
But-
don't think that they're going to give you an intermission,
No.
because if they don't like what you see, I'm sorry, if
Well-
they don't like what they're seeing, they will leave, because their time nowadays, people's time is more important than the money they spent.
Yeah. Well, and it also
That's actually true. It's very true.
it goes for the same way for the theaters, that the theaters want to pack as many movie screenings into their operating time.
Right.
But
Which
that's
is
where I also
100%
come back
true.
to, like, if we had 1 hour 30-minute to like maximum 2 hour movies, again like we used to, I think we would find ourselves maybe in a more I don't know how it would affect movie going, but I think I would be a lot more willing to commit an hour and 30 minutes of my time for a movie that might not pan out as, a great movie. Where a lot of times, especially since, I'm probably going to see a movie in the afternoon or more towards the evening, and it's like, do I want to go see Transformers 10 at 9:30 or 8:30 at night and be there until 11 p.m.?
Well,
It's-
I remember when I went to see Phantom Menace.
Mm-hmm.
I was still vested in Star Wars at that point. Not as much as I had been. Because I'll be honest, if you're a toy collector, I can mention 4 words, and if you're old enough to remember, Power of the Force. That drove me from collecting Star Wars. But I had just enough left in me to want to see the Phantom Menace, because it's like, okay, I loved the first Star Wars. I enjoyed Empire. I liked Jedi. Show me what you got. I went into a 9 o'clock showing got off at 12. We got out of there about 12:30 after all the trailers. I got home at 1 by 1 o'clock. I was up at 5 o'clock the next morning to go into work at 6. So I was running on 3.5 hours of sleep. This is pre-CPAP.
Mhm.
Sleep being the doing heavy lifting there. I was willing to invest it because I trusted Lucas. I trusted the people involved with the Star Wars franchise. Did I get what I wanted? Not really, but I was willing to invest the time because of the trust. We don't have that trust anymore from these Bay movies because we have seen bits and pieces of greatness of actual storytelling, especially in Rise of the Beasts versus the other stuff. But it's not enough for us to trust you anymore.
Primal and Airazor's whole thing was so good,
And they
and it
never
was
even
like,
had
yeah,
a 2-minute scene, and that was some of the best emotion we've seen from all of Michael Bay's Transformers movies. Is military porn. That's all it is military porn. And I want more than that. I want storytelling. I want gripping characters. I hate to keep going back to this. I don't want you reading a TV tropes page and thinking if we hit all these little bullet points, people will say, "Oh, I recognize that and I recognize that," and you'll enjoy yourself. No, that's like reading the cliff notes of a novel. Yeah, you get the basic information, but you get no enjoyment. If
Well,
I
see,
want to read a cliff notes, I'll read a cliff notes.
and I agree with that 100%. Like, the best contrast I can make, thinking of anything that, had been made in the past, that's a good contrast to this. Take 1997 Godzilla, yes, Zilla, and compare
98.
that, yeah, 98, compare that to Godzilla -1. That is what people are wanting. I honestly think there's going to be a sweet spot in between, probably like Godzilla versus
yeah. I
Kong,
mean, like,
where it's got the campiness, but it still has the action. It still has a bit of a serious tone.
I could
But it
rewrite.
could hit all the marks. That's what
I
needs
feel
to
like
happen.
I could rewrite the '98 movie to be a good movie. It had things in it that were good.
Hmm.
Um, and on the flip side, like -1, it's an amazing movie. Don't get me wrong. It's basically a World War II, a post World War II drama that by itself would be an amazing movie, but then it has Godzilla in it, which just icing on the cake. But
Yeah.
I think for a lot of people, that movie would fall into this movie is too artsy range. But um, for the most part, I mean, it did so well. Um, but there's definitely a nice middle ground, and I just don't think a lot of franchises. I think too many franchises are afraid of that middle ground, where it does something serious while also being able to be while, and it's hard to not to walk a serious but not too serious line. Um, and that's where I think the general movie audience, I think, is starting to move away from being excited by the things that Don is saying, where they go and they say, here's a famous quote from the franchise, here's this famous thing that happened in the franchise. If we make this happen in the movie, people will be excited about it. I feel like the general audience is sort of moving past that, where they're kind of tired of what South Park coined as member berries.
Yep.
And so hopefully as we move past that, we'll start getting a little more thought into, okay, we can't have Optimus say one will rise, one will fall, or whatever.
Well, we'll stand on.
Yeah, every time
Or do the
he's
gun
on screen.
pose, 'cause,
Every time
we
he's
gotta
on
have
screen,
that gun
right?
pose all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I think I don't know about y'all, but I'm tired. I'm tired of drivel. I'm tired of schlock. I don't want AI in my movies. I want people and craftsmen using their skills to bring these movies to life. There's a difference between using CGI, I think, and AI. CGI is supposed to enhance or otherwise do things where practical effects are not practical, hence the name.
Hmm.
Stop looking at it from what can we get for this $1 to make this movie? Oh, you want $1.25 for an extra shot? No, that's going to cut into our bottom line. Craft the movies, respect the material, get the people who know the stuff to write. Don't rely on computers to write stuff. It's the same thing as getting 1,000 monkeys typing typewriters. You may eventually get Shakespeare. But in the long run, what are you creating? You're creating a waste product. Either monkeys with wasted paper or Schleck on the screen, and then you stand there like, we had all the bullet points. Why didn't this make no money? Because it had no heart. It had no soul. Look at Pixar. Up. The first 10 minutes is absolutely emotional without a word being said. Wally, 50 to 75% of the movie, there is no vocal dialogue until they get to the spaceship, but you understand everything that's saying. Toy Story, and The Incredibles. The first Incredibles
Such a good
is
movie.
a,
Oh my
is
god.
a brilliant, brilliant movie because it was made by people who care, not a computer churning out crap based on the input. What was it that was the old saying? Garbage in, garbage out. All we want you to do, stop looking at just the bottom line, how many seats you can fill. Because here's free advice from someone who is not the head of Hasbro. I am not the head of Hasbro, according to popular theory. Write smart. Write to your audience, not down to your audience. Put the money where it will do the most good. If you make a product that respects the material, respects your audience, you'll get those people like me that went 7 times to see Wreck-It Ralph in theaters. Not all were matinees. Some were full price movie tickets because I was going through a bad time with mom passing away. But I wanted to see that movie again because it was so smart. Give us that and we will give you our money. Give us slop, you'll get our money once, and you'll get our sneer the rest of the time.
It's very, very, very true.
Good way to put it.
You're not wrong about that, Don. A movie that really comes to my mind that I think is really good was Ready Player One. I think it hit every mark. But you've never seen it? Dude.
I've never.
You should. Let me tell you why.
Yeah.
When you start watching that movie, your brain's going to explode of how many references are through that movie. That movie is going to completely blow your mind because it literally goes toward our childhood. And some of the new, and toward, like, I would say it's a good in-between movie for, like, my age demographic. Your age demographic is going to totally see a lot of them. And Cyber will be like, oh yeah, that! Oh yeah, that! It's one of those movies. That movie has got so many insane references in it. It is very well written. That's a movie I literally went out and bought it on Blu-ray the second it came out. It was that good.
See,
I don't do that. That's the first movie I've done that with.
Yeah. That's a movie. If you have me watch a movie, that's all references and bullet points and all that. I'm liable to watch it once, smile, say, hey, do you remember that scene? And I'll leave it. I'm going to show you something. This was a gift from Melvar over on RFC for my birthday. This is the Blu-ray of classic Battlestar Galactica.
Mm-hmm.
It's campy, it's hokey, but there is story, there is heart, there is care put into this versus a lot of the crap. I'd rather watch this 1979 TV show that had a budget of almost $1 million an episode. And Galactica 80 as well, but we don't talk about that. Because there's care, there's detail, there's prop work, there's camp, but it's camp in the service of the story and the setting, not camp just to be your college level toilet humor.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Ready Player One is not like that. Everything in it actually has a purpose. It's one of those movies that I don't know how they pulled it off like they did. You've seen it, haven't you, Sideburn?
No, I never watched it.
It's an amazing movie. I highly suggest
It looked like
you
it
guys
looked like
take
it would
the
appeal
time
to me.
do it. No,
It looked like it wouldn't appeal to me, so I didn't watch it.
I'm telling you, man, you probably would really like it because it's one of those movies that, to me, it hits all the marks when it comes to storytelling, environment. A lot of it is CG because a lot of the stuff they do in it is next to impossible to even pull off with practical effects. But the fact that the team that worked on it cared. That's the big thing when it comes to people that get into some of these movies. Me? Okay. The first few movies that Michael Bay made were good because there was some care there, some was kind of eh. But as you get further into them, it became more of a cash cow. They're pulling him in to try to fix the situation. Personally, if they do this the right way, and they bring in G.I. Joe with it, I think it's going to completely change how we're viewing the Bayverse. Because there's a lot of kids that grow up with Bayverse. I personally knew some. Like, know some. Not knew some. Know some. They love those movies. They didn't grow up with Generation 1 Transformers. They didn't grow up with Beast Wars. They didn't grow up with the Energon trilogy. They grew up with Michael Bay's stuff. They might have seen Transformers Prime. They're the ones who are going to be throwing the money at this kind of movie. And they're the ones that are just now probably having kids. So that's the direction it's going to probably go. And honestly, I would rather see it go that direction and keep growing than just die off. Like, into the nether, like we've seen a lot of franchises do. Yeah. Nobody remembers Dick Tracy, but what they tried to do in the 90s, they tried to revive it, and it didn't do well.
No, but I remember how visually stunning. I was just telling my wife, she's never seen Dick Tracy, how visually stunning and gorgeous that movie is. That's what unfortunately, that's all that I took away from it. Really, was that. But when it comes to all the base stuff and all that, I don't know if, for better or for worse, I think this phrase holds true. Every Transformer iteration is somebody's G1. Whether we like, y'all know me, I do not care for Beast Machines. I think Beast Machines has I said character assassination earlier. That is character assassination on an epic scale to the Beast Wars characters. I get what they were trying to do. I have no hate for the people behind it because they were trying to tell something different and unique. I just don't think it was that. I don't think the characterizations in the movies are any good. I don't think most of the humans are redundant and not. And if they're smart, they're the military. If they're civilians, they're dumb. Romeo and Juliet card. I'll just leave that there. I don't think we're going to get anything good. I don't think they're going to learn anything from this. They're going to look at what made money, and they're going to try to copy that. I don't expect anything from this base stuff. If it's good, I'll give them his props then. But the past track record of this Michael Bay clock, I couldn't tell you maybe 5 scenes that really stuck out in my head. One of them is the Devastator scene, which sticks out in my head for all the wrong reasons, because it's very juvenile and stupid. Two
I'm
Two or
pretty sure
three
we know
are
what
from
you're talking about there.
yeah, 2 or 3 of them are from the first movie, and the rest are just scattered bits and pieces, and that's all I really care to remember. I have enough to keep track of. The Bay movies take up maybe one. It takes up one floppy disk in my brain.
Oh, I understand.
Yeah, I get that. Like, I still think the opening of the 2007 movie with Blackout attacking the
Oh yeah, that's
military
one of
base.
the ones. Yeah, that got my attention. That got me sitting
Yeah.
up in my seats. I think one thing, all movies nowadays, I'm going to use Superman as an example. I didn't care for any of the Snyder stuff. One of the reasons is that everything was so dark and dirty and grungy and just heavy world look. And then you've got Superman with this dark blue and then when they announced the new Superman coming out in a couple of days, I posted this on Twitter. It'll be nice to finally see a Superman movie in color.
Yeah.
And that's what these movies need to do. Embrace your color theory. Don't make it dark. Like the first movie. When blackout, smoke, fire, and all that. But that was also a lot of that was... I can't talk tonight. It was covering the fact is they were cheating on the transformation.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's like... It's not much better than the morphing done in Beast Machines. They're like Beast Machines to me are like popples. They just turn inside out and boom your robot or boom your whatever.
Do you
So,
know
yeah.
the background behind all the reason why the very first Transformers movie, the animation of the transformations and stuff like that didn't look that clear? Do you know the reason behind all this?
I probably did, but my brain has dumped the information over the years, so I don't know right now.
Since I'm Mr. Cinematographer, movie buff, film guy here, Michael Bay basically melted down all of ILM's computers trying to render the entire movie because he didn't focus on the CG stuff till the very end after he was done filming everything and getting everything done. He learned his lesson because the second one, ILM also jumped the gun and went ahead and started making better models and stuff for the next movie. That's why the second and third movies look as good as they do. And so on and so forth. That torch got carried. The tone of the movies is what they need to work on, I think. Campiness is fun, but I don't think it should be the full tone. I think it should still have some seriousness. I think personally, since he did help work on Bumblebee, and he did help work on Rise of the Beast, at least characterization was more considered and more explored in those two movies. I think if he learned a lesson from those, he'll do just fine. Now, this is my
That's a
biggest
big
thing.
if.
This is my biggest thing. I'm going to say it right now. Peter Cullen is getting up there in the years. And said, I don't see the man living long enough to go through 5 more movies. It's a lot of dialogue to do to be Optimus Prime. So I think what they should do is do that whole torch carryover to Beast Wars. That way they can eliminate that whole issue and you don't have that kind of fatigue setting in and you can continue to grow the audience that love Beast, the Bayformer stuff, and get the kids involved with the Bayformer Beast War version and keep going with that torch. So that way it can continue into further generations instead of it settling and dying to the bottom of the ocean. Because that is what ultimately is going to probably end up happening if Hasbro does not do this next movie the correct way. Transformers 1, to me, is a complete phenomenal thing. That thing was screwed up how they advertised it. I really kind of looked past that movie because it was an animated one. The live action stuff is what they're going to be focusing more on. I don't see them doing more animation stuff to that level like they did with Transformers 1 for quite some time. It didn't cost them much, but I don't think they want to risk it again. That's
I think anime movies are just in general going by the wayside.
Well, I think part of that reason, for some reason, America in general will not embrace animation as a viable medium of storytelling. It constantly is relegated to being kids' movies or art pieces or things like that. They will not look at it as like, this story could not. It's like Star Trek classic and a classic series, very ahead of its time. Again, looking back at it, it's very campy, very fake looking, but again, at the time, they did wonderful. That's why Gene wanted to do the animated series, was to do things in Star Trek you could not do in live action. Animation has that potential, and we've seen these great stories, not just Pixar, other studios, independent studios, Japanese studios, Studio Ghibli. Japan values its animation industry as a storytelling medium. America does not view animation. They keep saying it's for kids or for toys or this. They will not embrace it, that it should be seen as just a viable medium. And we had talked about this a little bit in the chat. When we talk about our favorite Batman, okay?
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite Batman is Michael Keaton's, his first movie. Didn't care for the second one. Didn't care for the Danny DeVito's Penguin. I think Danny DeVito did a good Penguin. I just didn't want that Penguin. But he did a great job getting across the character. It just wasn't the kind of... I wasn't quite wanting Burgess Meredith Penguin, but I kind of wanted more of a blend. Be that as it may. Like, Nicholson was more of a blend of, say, another Joker and, say, Cesar Romero. It was kind of along those lines. I just think that the best Batman movie of all Batman movies, the one that nails Batman, Bruce Wayne, his conflicts, his pain, his enemies, Mask of the Phantasm. It is an animated movie, but it is the best Batman movie ever done. Not best animated. The best Batman movie, because that is Batman. That is the Joker. That is Gordon. And if people would learn to look past how it's made and what the story is saying, we could do so much more in this country with animation as a medium of storytelling.
Well, that's why I brought up anime earlier.
Yeah.
It's like, you know.
Yeah.
No, that I agree with. Like, I agree, animation, you're able to do a lot more with. But here in the West, unfortunately, look at the way we draw robots and look at the way Japan draws robots.
Yeah.
Completely
Oh,
night and day. So
yeah, one of
the
my favorites
are different.
Yeah, exactly. And anime does not have to be Japan. You can have other anime that's not Japan. One of my favorite series is called Code Lyoko. It's a French anime. And I've used that term before, and people have said, no, it's not. It's a cartoon. I said, why is it a cartoon?
Yeah.
The stuff from Japan is anime.
In the West, we're very stubborn. I mean, we've decided that anime means animation from Japan.
Yeah.
Where in Japan, anime is anything animated. So if an animated movie comes from America into Japan, it's anime. If a French animation goes into Japan, they call it anime. And I understand, you know, you kind of need a cultural distinction. But I feel like we walk that line a lot. Like the Castlevania series on Netflix, everyone calls that Arcane. Everyone calls that anime. Those are not made by Japanese studios. Those are made. So I think we're starting to walk that line. I think, to me, giving it to a studio like Studio Trigger, or someone that makes legitimate anime, a Japanese studio, would just get it into the anime pop culture like zeitgeist, and then that could spread it to a more legitimate, like, make animation legitimate for Transformers again, because it hasn't been for a long time for whatever reason.
Yeah, that's what I was saying earlier.
Yeah.
Don't give us this War for Cybertron crap that had no budget. It was dark. It was grainy. It looked bad. It sounded bad. The vocal direction is bad. I'm surprised Wally Bird did not come back out of his grave and smack the voice director out of just sheer principle.
Yeah, it was special.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good way of saying it.
I was like, someone's first exposure to Beast Wars Megatron was Kingdom. The season 3 of that was the Kingdom season, and that breaks my heart because that was an awful, just disgusting, like, representation of who is one of the, in my opinion, and I feel like a lot of people's opinions, one of the most iconic characters ever is Beast Wars Megatron, and David K.
Yeah.
And his,
Yeah, and how hard will it be to change that? Because if they went back and watched Beast Wars and saw David K's Megatron, they're gonna think that's not right, because that was the first. It's sort of like your first Doctor. The first Doctor you see is the one you carry a torch for the longest time. After a while,
I don't know. So, I mean, I started on the guy before Tennant. I don't know why his name's escaped me.
Eccleston.
Eccleston. I like Eccleston, but Tennant's my doctor.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I started with Tom Baker, and Tom Baker's still my favorite classic Doctor. But again, it's just that is a perception that will be almost impossible for them to change, because that was their G1. That was their experience. And it was a bad experience for us, but for them, maybe not.
Well,
So
I mean,
we're in the wrong. No.
I see where you're going, because personally, my first experience to, any kind of Sentai thing, technically, the very first Voltron cartoon from the 80s. Technically, it's Sentai almost.
I wouldn't call that Sentai.
It kind of falls into that because the way Voltron transforms into his larger robot.
Yeah, that's
very
and then
Sentai.
You got the color. Yeah, you're right. I never really thought about
all that stuff. Because at first, when Power Rangers came to the United States, I was like, "What is this? Some knockoff Voltron?" No, it was the other way around.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that until I was older.
I love it.
Just saying, I'm getting
we all know
that.
Vehicle Voltron's a better Voltron.
Yeah, Hey, I love Darude. I got models, kits
I
of
feel
Darude
like
and Voltron.
if Transformers, if Beast Wars didn't exist, I would probably be a Power Rangers guy right now. But Beast Wars just dominated my childhood to the point where I loved Power Rangers, but I owned no Power Ranger stuff because I wanted Beast Wars stuff. Because if it was my birthday, Beast Wars. That's all I asked for. Everything I got was Beast Wars.
That's the demographic that we're looking at, though. Because think about it: people that grew up with Michael Bay's Optimus Prime being all stoic wasn't the dad version of Optimus Prime from the 80s, and definitely wasn't Optimal Optimus or Optimus Primal from Beast
And
Wars.
I feel like you
there
could
are
do
huge demographic changes there.
because I feel like you can cater to both audiences, because I feel like they did. He's slept on, and I don't know why. I mean, most people agree it's probably one of the, if not the second best, maybe the best. It really depends on how much you want to argue about it. But animated, now I don't ever hear a lot of people talk about him, but their version of Optimus Prime, I felt really walked a good line of um, being sort of that guy that brings the team together, as well as, because they portrayed him as like a younger guy, having sort of that boneheaded stoicism sometimes, right?
Mhm.
And I felt like they walked a good line with where they could meet both audiences in the middle with something like animated Prime. I would really like to see a return to the more fatherly Optimus Prime than the stoic Optimus Prime. I'm so sick of stoic Optimus Prime at this point. Like, I just want him to. I feel like the Skybound comics has done it. I haven't read much of it. I've only read the first 6 books or first, yeah. But I feel like he had a good little bit of humanity to him that needs to return to Transformers. Um, but in a you know, our heroes need to be heroes again. I think that's kind of at the end of the day. Our heroes need to be heroes again.
They do. And I personally think, when it comes to some of this stuff, I just hope wherever this is going to lead into the future for all the Transformers universe, that it continues to go and inspire people to create more and not just let it die. Because there's a lot of people that have been saying, oh, well, Transformers is dead. It's a dying thing, this, that, and the other. I'm like, really? It isn't. It evolves. It's evolved with almost every demographic there is. Right now, we're just kind of in what I like to call
We're in a
we're in a bit of a rut.
Yeah.
I'd say.
It just needs a hook. It needs one hook to grab people again, and because if you really want to be, I think we might be in a bigger rut than we were at the time, but we were in a rut with the Unicron trilogy, and the movies did bring us out of that rut for a good 10 years.
Yeah.
And it's just we're in that rut again. I think we're just in that rut. And it's not impossible to get out of that rut. Transformers has gotten out of the rut 2 times now.
Time repeats itself.
Yeah.
It just does.
And we'll see what they do, because I think there is a generation of people who were very excited for Transformers that are reaching their 30s. And like I said, I do think there is sort of a power to the passive income you have in your 30s that brings franchises around in waves. And there's a good chance, if the next movie comes out 2 years from now in 2027, that it's hitting right at that perfect time to hit that sort of that range again, to get those people back into the seats and excited about their childhood. And we just gotta see how that plays out, and then hopefully it plays out in a way that we can all enjoy, and not just them, but it's time will tell.
Dawn?
I'm tired of living in interesting times, and I wish the entertainment that I choose to enjoy was not the best of the worst sometimes. I don't like starting a show on Netflix and then it be canceled. My wife and I were watching a show called Chaos, where Jeff Goldblum is Zeus.
Mm-hmm.
Let that sink into your head right there, and imagine how crazy that was.
I have seen it, and I loved it.
And it's been canceled. It was canceled. So I'm tired of shows being super popular, but not that good enough, and it be canceled. I'm tired of people saying, these big animation heads like what's his face at Warner Brothers, killing off movies, selling movies, completed movies, people at Disney and Pixar are saying, we're not going to have these little slice of life movies. We're going to keep making the things people want. Did y'all want a Toy Story 5? Does anyone really want another Toy Story after the fourth one that I felt was fairly unnecessary? But that's just me.
Same thing with a Lightyear movie.
Yeah, I read something about that Lightyear movie that felt like someone who thought a really cool Lightyear movie would look like that they based the toy line off of, and that makes me sad.
Man,
when I think of Lightyear, I think of the cartoon. That's where I
Yeah.
think the toy line came from.
That cartoon was so campy.
It was
so
fun.
good.
It was
It
fun.
was. I remember that.
Yeah. I just want these studios to stop chasing the AI cost savings, quote unquote. You have people, you have talent. Let them write. Have I watched it since I saw it originally? No. But you know a movie that stuck with me? It was a Pixar movie. Luca. It was a small, charming little movie with a lot of heart, and I was glad I watched it, and I'm glad I've seen it. But that's the kind of movies they don't want to make. These directors taking their experiences and making these small little slice of life movies that everybody can enjoy. They don't want that. They want to milk your Toy Stories. I am terrified for Incredibles 3 if they ever make one, because 2 was such a disappointment. I felt like that there was a lot.
I think they announced one.
Yeah, they did.
I think so, yeah.
I just want the people at these studios, at these TV production companies, in the comics, I want the people with the purse strings to look at what they have on their table and say, let's make a better movie. Yeah, maybe it'll cost a little more. Maybe we'll only make $150 million profit instead of $200 million profit. Okay. But if that movie is a better movie, it gets more people in the seats. It's successful. People want to see more. Then you make a sequel. Same heart, same focus, just the next chapter. Don't churn out. How many movies have we seen that we liked the first one, and then, not counting Transformers, and then the second one, not quite as good. There's a third one, not quite as good. A fourth one, not quite as good, because they're using the TV tropes pages to hit all the bullet points that your first movie did, and they're not taking away the true meaning of make a good movie. Trust your people to make it. Don't talk down to your audience, and produce something with some quality. That's all we're asking. And if you don't give it to us, you're not getting our money.
It's a very, very true statement. There's only one movie I can think of that even really made me feel that way, and that was Empire Strikes Back. Like, I loved Empire over the other Star Wars movies, over all the Star Wars movies. And that's the second movie.
Yeah.
Why that was is because they knew how to tell a story. They knew how to continue a story. If you're going to continue a story, you've got to have your high points, and you've got to have that one thing that they never reach. They never reach it. They're always reaching for it. If you don't have this thing for them to chase throughout the whole thing, that's all for nothing. Like, it doesn't create anything. But if they end up getting that thing at the end, that payoff better be worth it. If you're going to kill off a franchise or whatever you're going to do. Like,
what was that fourth? What was that fourth Indiana Jones movie? Indiana Jones and the what?
The dial, something
Dial
about
of Destiny.
Dial of Destiny, yeah.
Dial of Destiny. Yeah. My wife and I started watching that,
Mhm.
and I was kind of into it, but then it started not syncing video and audio on the whatever we were watching it on.
Mhm.
We've never gone back to it. Do you know why? Because
Well-
as I was watching it, I was saying, "There's that from the first movie. There's that from the second movie. There's a reference to Brody in the third movie. There's that car chase scene again, just in a different city with tiny taxis."
Mhm.
I was picking out now whether that's me being older and able to see this stuff, or them not even trying to hide it. I did not go back. We've not gone back to finish it. I don't care to.
I can understand that. I mean, I kind of like. To me, dinosaur movies have always been a guilty pleasure. I'll watch any of them that have dinosaurs in them. And there was this one show I used to watch on Sci-Fi. It's called Terra. I hated the way they never finished it. It was so well done. It kept me hooked. It was like Jurassic Park, but a TV show version of it. But it was different. It hit different. The writing was good. But the problem is, a lot of these producers and stuff like that, they don't see the payback. Much like Firefly and what they did with an ending movie for Firefly. Absolutely ticked off everybody that was a Firefly fan at the end. Like, totally made them mad. Because they didn't give us an actual payoff.
If you
If you're
didn't
going to do
care,
a payoff, you've got to make sure it's right. If
they're
Michael
trying to
Bay
do
does,
that.
I just don't know what Michael Bay's going to do with the next one. If he's going to fish in the other 3 live actions and kind of pull them together into a net and make it make sense, because that's kind of what he's going to have to do. I don't know what's going to happen.
I think they should just pick up Rise of the Beasts. The first 5 movies happened. Bumblebee. I don't know. See, as I mentioned earlier, because they never came out and said what Bumblebee was. Was it a prequel? Was it a soft reboot? They didn't want to commit to anything, so they left us with nothing. And then Rise of the Beast is picking up from where? What point? Do we actually care about any of these people now? I don't. I saw Rise of the Beast twice. Saw it in theater. Saw it once on streaming. Y'all know me. Y'all know I've been in Transformers since this day one. I don't care if I see the movie again. I've seen it twice. I remember the parts I want to remember. If it's on and I have literally no paint to watch dry, I will probably watch it again. But that should not be the bar you set for someone to watch a movie, is they don't have paint to watch dry.
I mean, there somewhere on cable, Fifth Element's playing, so you go find that and you watch it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I just wrapping up everything that I'm old, I'm tired. I'm tired of people being stupid. You're making billions and billions and billions of dollars as a head of a studio. Your films are making money. You're making money. Pay the people what they deserve. Get the quality talent in there. Make smart movies. Not pretentious movies that seem like they're smart. Decent, well-written, well-acted movies. The right people, the right cast, the right controls. Give us something decent. You'll get our money. Give us slop. We'll go to the trough. We'll turn our nose up, and we will walk away if that's what you think that we want. Here's a little lesson. We ain't pigs. We don't want slop. We want something decent.
Mm-hmm.
You want our money? Give us that.
That kind of sums it all up for me too. Like, I have faith that they're going to do something to help the Bayverse kids out, but we really just know we don't need another open-ended thing that isn't going to make sense. I mean, I personally love the Bumblebee movie, but it doesn't fit anywhere. The Rise of the Beast one kind of could, but it's still confusing because Unicron's supposed to be part of the Earth or whatever at the end of last night, and all of a sudden Unicron's coming toward the Earth. how are they going to make that work? I don't know. I don't know how they're going to bridge
Anyway,
that gap,
that's-
but
I have zero faith. This is okay, Michael Bay. When you sit down and you see this at 3 o'clock in the morning because you got nothing else to do, I am the average John Doe fan for your series. Here, I'm making a challenge to your ego. Prove me wrong. Make a movie I can tell my wife and my friends and anyone that will listen, hey, I went and saw Transformers X, and it is absolutely wonderful. Prove me wrong. I'm done.
Cyber.
I mean, I think I basically just agree. Like, we need more quality. And if you do in this day and age, like Godzilla -1 showed, make something quality, people go and tell everyone else to go see it. And it might not do the best the first weekend, do better the second weekend, do better the third weekend.
Oh, maybe
And that's
use
it.
maybe use this to light our darkest entertainment hour.
And,
but
and that's
I
a
don't think
better,
this is gonna work.
Yeah.
that's a better direction than your first weekend being your biggest moneymaker, and then your second weekend flatline. So
Well,
Let's,
Flatline's not out yet. I think he's still on pre-order.
this is very true. Well, that being said, I think we have rambled long enough about our view on the Bayverse movies and movies in general. It's kind of nice to kind of break out and see, our thoughts about other stuff. And we'll end up doing this again next week. I'm going to have these guys go ahead and say their sign-offs, and then we're going to get ahead and get out of your all's hair.
Okay. I'm Don. I'm Headmaster Don. Part of the Old Timers Club when it comes to Transformers. I can be found on Twitter at HMRC, the number 4 EVR. I can be found on Blue Sky at HMRC, the number 4 EVR.bluesky.social. I can also be found Wednesdays 8:30 at Radio Free Cybertron, tfradio.net, the world's oldest internet podcast about shape-changing robots that aren't GoBots.
No knock on GoBots. Go ahead, Cyber.
No, not gonna go. No, not gonna go. No. And I'll tell you this, Plasticon. I found a mint in box, apparently unopened, GoBots laser gun.
Wow.
It is en route now.
Dope. You're going to have to bring it on the show next week.
Oh, that
Well,
is
wait,
my
wait.
shockwave.
Next week probably won't happen because it's 4th of July weekend.
4th of July weekend.
Us,
Yeah,
us,
it is.
us Americans and our American holidays, we
Yeah.
got to have that day off.
But I mean, that's my shockwave. That's you give me a choice. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah.
Double barrel. Yeah.
Hmm.
Between that and a mint in box shockwave, I'll take that GoBot laser gun every day of the week.
Don't blame you. Don't blame
But
you.
I'll bring it on when I get it.
Okay, cool. Go ahead, Sideburn. Say your goodnights.
yeah, I'm Cybird. You can't find me anywhere but here. I'll see you guys the next time we have a show.
Yep. And
You're not on any social media at all.
I mean, I'm on Reddit, but don't look for me.
No. So don't read it.
And then I'm on Facebook, but I joined Facebook so that we could use Messenger to coordinate the podcast. I got off of I was spending too much time on social media, so I got rid of it all about a year ago.
Smart move.
To try to break free from it, and for the most part, I haven't gotten back on it.
That's good. Probably a smart move.
habits need to be broken. That's all I got to say. Take notes, Hasbro.
Yeah, it was eating up too much of my work day. I would keep grabbing my phone, and I'm like, okay, I gotta stop doing this. So I kind of went cold turkey on social media for a while.
Clearly,
Hasbro, we mean, we don't mean like brain, breaking toes with the Pinkertons. That's not what we're talking about.
No. Let's have some fresh, cool stuff and stop regurgitating the same thing over and over again. It's getting a little old. That train left the station a long time ago.
Yeah, that Astro train is derailed.
Yeah. And Raiden wasn't there to help pick him up off the track and carry him along.
Yeah, and now all we have is the poor Tycho train set trying to carry the whole load by himself in HO scale around that track.
You realize
I'm
I
carrying the
own
whole
that,
franchise.
right?
I'm carrying the whole franchise. Help!
You realize I own that, by the way.
I wish I had one. I wish I had bought it when I had a chance.
Yep, I have one. It's an amazing
That
toy.
may be a good thing. The thing that maybe a good episode. The thing that got away from us. The oddball, the unique, the what the hell am I going to do with this? And 20 years later, because I got one, and I'll just mention 3 words to you, and you probably know it, Jason. Mr. Hard Hat.
Oh yeah.
Got away from me. Got away from me.
Darn.
Anyway,
Anyway,
everyone, take care. Have a safe and happy 4th. Don't blow your fingers off. Leave fireworks to the professionals. And for God's sake, keep the aerosol cans away from your butt.
Roman candle wars are not allowed.
Exactly. And when the Human Torch says flame on, it's something completely different.
Exactly.
Anyway, everyone take care.
Yeah, see you guys.
All right, we're getting out of here. See y'all later.